Students, have you ever made a teacher cry? When I was in high school, my math teacher, Mrs. Nichols, was notorious for failing students just because she didn't like them. She'd give detentions for the smallest things, like dropping a pencil or sneezing too loudly. But what really made my blood boil was how she treated my best friend, Anthony. Anthony struggled with math, but worked harder than anyone I knew. He'd stay up until 2 a.m. studying, get tutoring 3 times a week, and still barely managed C's. Instead of helping, Mrs. Nichols would mock him in front of everyone, saying things like, "Maybe if you weren't so stupid, you'd understand basic algebra." One day, Anthony got a D on a test he'd studied 2 weeks for. Mrs. Nichols announced his grade to the whole class, saying, "I guess some people just aren't college material." Anthony ran out crying. That was the last straw. I spent the next week going through every single school policy document I could find. My mom worked as a secretary for the school board, so I had access to stuff most students never saw. At 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, I found exactly what I needed. A rule from 1987 that was never removed. All graded assignments must be returned within 5 school days unless prior arrangements are made with department heads. The next day, I convinced half the class to turn in their homework 5 minutes before the bell. Mrs. Nichols always collected assignments at the end of class. It was one of her power moves. The following Monday, she hadn't graded them yet. According to the rule, those assignments had to be counted as 100%. But I wasn't done. I dug deeper and found another forgotten rule. Students may request a grade review by submitting Form 23B within 48 hours of receiving any grade below 70%. I printed 50 copies of Form 23B. Every time Mrs. Nichols gave anyone below a C, we'd flood the principal's office with review requests. The principal was required to personally review each one with the department head present. Mrs. Nichols started getting called into meetings almost daily. She'd return to class with her face red, hands shaking. But instead of changing her ways, she got worse. She started failing entire sections of students out of spite. That's when I played my final card. Another rule stated that if more than 40% of a class was failing, the teacher had to submit a written improvement plan to the school board. 3 consecutive improvement plans meant automatic performance review. I organized study groups where we'd intentionally fail tests, but keep detailed records of all our study hours and tutorial sessions. 20 of us filed complaints about her teaching methods. Parents started calling the school board. During the 3rd week of her performance review, Mrs. Nichols finally broke. In the middle of class, while trying to explain why half of us had failed the midterm, she just stopped. Tears started rolling down her face. She grabbed her purse and ran out. The next day, we had a substitute. The day after that, too. By Friday, the principal announced Mrs. Nichols had taken early retirement. But here's the best part. Remember Anthony? He retook all his tests under the new teacher and got B's. Turns out he wasn't stupid after all. Mrs. Nichols had been grading his papers differently than everyone else's.